Good evening, everybody, and welcome to Facebook Live. My name is Rick Shore, and I serve Kelvin University as the Director of Alumni and Community Relations. And we're just happy to be here with you tonight, and we're going to be doing a telephone, or I should say, a Facebook Live town hall with President Michael Leroy. We did one of these earlier this year, and he wanted to do one again, and so we're glad to welcome him back. So President Leroy, welcome. I'm going to turn it over to you to give a little bit of a college update, and then we can get into some Q&A after that. We've been asking for folks for questions over the past several days on social media and got a lot of great questions for you. So we'll get to those, and then if people have more questions and want to leave them in the comments on Facebook, we can try to get to some of those as time allows too, but I will let you open up with an update from the university.
Yeah, thanks so much, Rick. It's really great to use this medium to connect with our alums. Really grateful for your support, for your prayers. Last time I was part of this conversation, I think I was coming from my living room or maybe my office, I'm not really sure, but the production values were very poor. I was, trying to figure all this out. So it's taken me 6 months, but I'm in a slightly better place. I'm coming from my office on campus. It's been great to be on campus and learning face to face. Our students, we've had wonderful weather here in West Michigan. The trees are just beautiful color. And I looked out the window today as I was working in my office, and it was just such a joy to see students passing one another out there. And actually, when you encounter them, there's such a spirit of gratitude, I think, for all of us to feel like, oh, we're finally out of the basement and, we're not learning behind screens anymore. What our students are doing is spread out, but they're learning in classrooms. They're also learning in places like lobbies of buildings and other spaces like residence hall basements where we can spread out and actually have larger groups in some cases. Rooms like the recital hall on the Covenant Fine Arts Center and so on are examples of places where larger classes are happening. But there is a spirit of gratitude and joy on the campus. I have to give a ton of credit to our faculty and staff who have planned thoughtfully and well all through the spring and summer. They have just done amazing work to keep our students, faculty and staff, safe and healthy in this return to campus. The faculty have had to envision their teaching in person with the ability to live stream their courses for any students that are symptomatic or not feeling well that day. And so that is a lot for them to manage and to learn how to do, but they've had a really good attitude. They're helping each other learn. And I've learned a lot just from the times I've been able to drop into some classes and interact. So the spirit is really positive. I'll also say that, in August when we were planning this and getting sort of close and the media were describing the risks and the concerns, and there were outbreaks in many campuses, generally larger campus communities with large Greek systems and other kinds of things. I didn't know how this would work at Kelvin. We did screening tests for everyone, faculty, staff, and students as they arrived on campus. We had around a dozen infections that detected, many of those asymptomatic, but that enabled us to identify those who were infected and to really limit the spread. And we've been very much in a mode of following all the safety protocols. We've had a total since August 1 of about 45 or so cases. You can actually see the dashboard live that Michael's going to put up here for you if you want to check in on our case count. But that's our daily monitoring of cases. We're currently on campus. We have 0 cases of active COVID right now. That's down from a high of about 15 in mid-September. So we have a great team of contact tracers. We're doing a lot of really positive things to contain the spread of the virus. And then I think the other thing that I would share with you is the students have just been phenomenal at following the guidance. They really want to be here, and their attitude is we want to do everything we can to ensure that we can continue to learn in this environment. So we're at 0 cases on campus right now. I can also tell you that in this whole time that our staff and faculty have been working to prepare and get ready, we have not had a single case of spread from one individual to another that's attributed to the workplace or the classroom. So that's really good for our employees. Any employees that have contracted the infection actually contracted it from other relationships outside of Kelvin. So we don't exactly have a bubble. We are, we have students commuting in from off campus and so on, but everybody's doing a really good job at following guidance. And here we are. We're today at noon. We celebrated the halfway point between now and between the beginning of the term and Thanksgiving. So we're more than halfway home to Thanksgiving. So that's a little bit of life on campus, and I'm happy to answer more questions and dig into more of that as we proceed. A couple other things are very exciting for us. We received, as you may have heard in June, a very substantial gift of $11 million to endow a new institute which is going to be devoted to the development of faith and learning capacity of our faculty and faculty globally. So it's a wonderful gift that is enabling faculty to have the time they need to really understand deeply how the scriptures and their faith tradition bear on their discipline. And so we're very excited about this. Professor from the religion department, Matt Lundberg, has been appointed as the director of that institute, and you can look forward to receiving more information about the work that we have that's ongoing there. But it's a very exciting development for us, and I think it's an endowment. Every Christian college that I've been a part of, I've dreamed of something like this for the faculty, so that the Christian mission, could endure beyond one president or beyond one faculty member, beyond for decades and generations to come. And this endowment is a wonderful addition. No other Christian college or university has anything like it, and we think it's distinctive and really special and important. Another substantial gift that we're celebrating is the founding of the Kelvin University School of Business. It came a $22.5 million gift from an anonymous donor, and these donors have really enabled the founding of the first school that's part of our university. The construction planning has been underway. It's going to be a building adjacent to the DeVos Communication Center, and we're going to be breaking ground on that in the spring. And so we're very excited about that as well. The check for that came a couple of weeks ago. The donor delivered it to me themselves, and it was a really wonderful moment, but it's an exciting thing for us in the campus community. So we're very excited about that. Also really excited about this donor's vision for other schools to be founded at the university. And so there are opportunities out there if you're kind of sitting there thinking of, a school that you would like to pull together in health sciences or something like that. You can be sure to contact us. But we're very excited about what this means for the Kelvin University School of Business. The other thing that I was just inspired by is this is a donor who also has seen the family's success in business as a catalyst for supporting Christian higher education, supporting theological education, supporting the arts. And that is a wonderful example to our students, is that we have a founder of a business school who actually part of his life philanthropy was oriented towards supporting the arts as well. And so I think the hope is that it inspires other students who might be studying business to be thinking about what business is for, what it's for in terms of serving humanity by providing employment opportunities, what business is for in terms of what the fruits of that labor can produce and advance across the liberal arts education at Kelvin University. So anyway, so those are some things that bring me a lot of joy right now. And I know, Rick, you've been receiving questions for a couple of days now, and so we can launch into the agenda that is yours.
Yeah, that's great. Thank you, President Leroy. So
you can call me Michael, Rick.
Okay. Thank you. So I wanted to start off, I guess, with a couple questions about what life is like for students right now. We had, some people wondering, are students learning remotely from their dorms? You've talked a little bit about that. What has been the campus life? What's campus life been like for students, in the dining halls, out on the pathways, that type of thing? I wonder if you could talk a little bit about that.
Yeah, no, that's a great question. So I'll just get more specific then. When we started the semester, I would say about 90% of our courses were face-to-face in the classroom, in person. We have a small percentage of our faculty who are immunocompromised themselves, or they have family members who are, and so we gladly made that accommodation. It made a lot of sense. And we have some students who preferred, for reasons like that, to learn remotely. We have we have about 200 students that are learning remotely. About 65 of them are international students who were unable to get appointments with consulates in their home cities, home communities because of COVID. The consulates were closed, and so the visas have been slower in coming for them. So we developed an online cohort for that population of students, and then we have about 150 or so students who are learning remotely for reasons related to health. But all of the rest of the students are in the classroom with faculty, learning in classrooms where they're distanced about 6 feet apart. They're wearing masks. It's been funny. It's been a lot for them to get used to. And yet I've been in some classes, and they seem very well acclimated to it. It's not ideal, but they so much prefer learning in person, even if they have to wear a mask, to learning, online or remotely. And so that's been really positive. In the residence halls, we started very cautiously because we actually knew that we had some infections that we had identified. This is a very infectious disease, even when students or faculty or staff are following all the guidance. You're really just, you could be in situations in the grocery store or other places where you could contract it. So we wanted to start slowly. We had we had a playbook, but we had no one that had done this before. We had some students on campus through the late spring and summer who were not able to return home. That gave us some experience. But what we really were seeking to do is provide a lot of outdoor social opportunities for students and really limit the interaction of students in their residence halls and in the indoor spaces to very few people. So students were limited at first, in the first couple of weeks, to just staying within their suite with their roommates, not staying there for all day, but just that was their social circle. And then as we've verified and validated that residence halls don't have any infection and that we've established kind of a track record, we have opened up more opportunities for indoor socializing. The weather we're anticipating will turn, so we wanted to practice some of this so students can interact with each other on their floor and now soon in their halls. So that's actually, they've welcomed that. But tonight I was walking the dog on campus. We have tents set up all over the place on campus where students can socialize in the evening. There were students it looked like they were having candlelight dinners outside, and a lot of very joyful noises and banter among the students. And so what is amazing to me is the students' resilience, their ability to adapt and find good ways to socialize and be active. Our athletic teams, we have also been practicing through the fall, and where possible, they've been competing with some of the schools in the MIAA who have been competing. That's been a very, very good experience for our cross-country runners, for example, golf and tennis athletes, so we're really grateful that those opportunities have been available. Our conference at this point is planning to schedule most of the fall sports for competition in the spring. We feel like we have learned a lot, and our regime of testing and all the protocols have really enabled us to have limited competition this fall in a very safe and healthy way. And that's given us greater confidence heading into winter and spring sports. Still be a lot of care, and especially as we go to indoor sports, the risks there are a little bit higher. But I'm really grateful for this situation in which we find ourselves. Grateful also that faculty and staff, and especially some of us are in an older category than a 22-year-old, and so that we have more risk factors. Really grateful that our faculty and staff have remained safe and healthy. We've had a few infections in that population, but really those covered and are doing really well, and we don't have any active infections among faculty or staff, so that's been really positive for us today. You can thank God for faculty and staff, just how wonderful they've been. We had also today out on the lawn by my house, we honored and celebrated and thanked the staff in particular who kept this place running through the months of March and April and May when we were shut down. They were our essential workers who, we didn't know very much then. It's kind of interesting when I reflect back on some of the folks that, we didn't know a lot. And the fact that they were willing, because their love of the mission, they were willing to be here and serve and do the things that were necessary to take good care of the students that we still had responsibility for, and keep our IT systems running, to keep the plumbing working, and keep the buildings appropriately heated and all of that. So there's just a lot I'm grateful for. So we're not out of the woods yet. We're not thinking that all is well. We don't want to get complacent, because we want to keep doing what we've been doing. That is delivering the Christian mission of education to our students. So.
Yeah, you talked about athletics, and I know that with all the testing that's been happening on campus, some of the athletes have been tested a little bit more, and now you've also expanded the testing to some other students as well. And I wondered if you could talk a little bit about that. And also, is Kelvin going to be getting any of the rapid testing options that are available and that type of thing? So, what are your
Yeah, no, I was laughing at the rapid testing. It feels like probably had 4 or 5 telephone calls with different options or strategies trying to, there are some really great ideas out there, like a paper strip test that you put your saliva on and it tells you right away whether you're infected or not. The problem is that the federal government's bought 160 million of them, and so the supply of them to institutions like ours is limited or murky until they figure out how that's going to be distributed. So we have to really keep going after it. We know we've had a great partnership with Helix Diagnostics to do our testing program using a PCR test that is kind of the gold standard for how the testing should be done. They did a wonderful job, brought their crew in. They tested 4,000 of us in the fall to get started. They got the results back, quickly, much faster than anyone else in Michigan was getting them back. So we were really thankful for that. And so that we know that we can go ahead with that method again if to start January and the spring semester. That is a more costly strategy. So we're trying to identify some faster, kind of those faster, cheaper tests that we all read about. And we're hoping that those become available. But right now the biggest challenge for us is getting access to that supply chain. It's the same thing that everybody wants, and that's so that's understandable. Our athletes, we had anywhere from 200 to 350 at in the last week, I think, was the biggest group of athletes that we had tested this fall, because we had overlapping sports. We had just about everybody was practicing, it seemed like, and but when we got off to a start, we had some infections among some couple of teams. When that was really during the first, it's kind of a blur. I can't remember if that was the first week or the beginning of the second week, but anyway, we decided based on that we should pause. I think everybody was trying to do their best, and we had thought a lot about practice and competition and the way things ought to be in those circumstances. And we just, reviewed our checklists and thought, okay, we probably have more we can do about helping students to understand after practice socially kind of what's permissible. And, we had a few new cases crop up, not only among athletes, but in other contexts. And, when you ask the person, okay, who are your close contacts? And they give you 6 other people. Those are 6 other people that now have to be in quarantine until it's verified that they're no longer infected. They still are able to learn and go to class online and all of that. But everybody the word gets around that, oh man, we should be careful about who we're spending time with, and we should be careful that the people we're spending time with are being careful. And that was a good wake-up call. And then after that, we really had a run of several weeks of our athletes having, we were administering hundreds of tests and 0 cases. And so they are, like our students as a whole, very committed not only to their academic work, but to their sport, and they don't want to do things or compromise their opportunity to participate. So, yeah.
Yeah, well, Kelvin's response seems to be resonating with people. I see some comments coming here online that say, so proud of Kelvin's COVID response and for our amazing students. And great job, Kelvin. We're looking to you as a model for the fall of 2021 since we have a current high school senior. So, yeah. I wondered, I guess it's a good segue into, you mentioned prospective students. I'm wondering if you could talk a little bit about what is the Kelvin's visit policy right now? What is it like for prospective students?
Yeah.
And what would you want alumni to be telling prospective students right now about coming to Kelvin?
Yeah, well, I think first of all, especially if there's any questions about our commitment to deliver face-to-face instruction and to deliver on our Christian mission and deliver on excellent education, that we're open and we're doing everything that we can do to make sure that we deliver on an excellent education. And so that ought to give a lot of people confidence. Where they're only, just so you have a perspective on this, only 30% of all higher education institutions in the country are operating face-to-face instruction right now. So that's a remarkable thing. So I am aware that for prospective students and parents, there's still uncertainty. What is fall 2021 going to look like? We hope that that the virus is in abeyance as much as possible, that most people are vaccinated. We hope that that really diminishes the spread, but we don't know that yet for sure that it's going to be there. But what we felt all along from last April is that we had to make a good faith effort to figure out how to fulfill our mission in community, in person, and that we had to do everything we could do to make sure that that happened. So I think the fall should give a lot of people confidence that Kelvin is capable of doing this. And so if you know of people who have 17-year-olds who are thinking about, I don't know if I'm going to go to college because I don't know whether college is going to be open. Point them in our direction, tell the story. I think the more you're sharing out the story of what we are able to do here for our students, I think that really sells itself. We are hosting in-person visits, and they tend to be more personalized, customized. But that's great. And I've had a lot, and I'm traveling less, so I'm seeing lots of visitors and meeting a lot of students and parents, taking the tours as they go past my office and so on. So that's been great. But we also have virtual open houses, a couple of them each week. And I think we'll post that link on the page too. And I would encourage people to join us for one of those. I've been giving a greeting and a welcome in those, but our admissions counselors, it's a great opportunity for them to connect with prospective students and for prospective students to engage and get introduced to Kelvin. We're trying to make it possible for students at any point in their decision-making process to come and see what it's like to be here and to see what it's like to have this experience. So, I think another thing that you can do if you're an alum and you want to be helpful is we're going to be doing more with this over the course of the year. But I think one of the things we're realizing is how important it is to grow the networks of people that know about Kelvin. If you're tuning into this, you're an alum, you know about Kelvin. But think about your friends and think of your friends of friends. people that you work with or whatever who may or may not know much about Calvin. If you're tuning in from Alaska, or if you're tuning in from California, or if you're tuning in from Ypsilanti, the people that work right next to you may not know about Calvin. I'm always amazed at people I meet in Grand Rapids who have driven by, but they didn't even know a university was here. So let's not. I think I'd encourage you all to not take anything for granted, to tell the story, to pass on in social media the good things that are happening. So we've always got on our news and stories pages some of the latest things. A lot of our alumni association Facebook feed, and Rick does a great job with social media. Just the extent to which you share those things, encourage prospective students to just take the next step. That can be really beneficial. So I think there's real power in your story as an alum, and the stories that can be told in our network. And so your ability to tell those stories are really key part of what we need to do in our strategy to recruit students.
Yeah, that's great advice. And we'll put it in the links below. There's a visit page in case people do want to come to visit.
Yeah.
So we'll put a link to that below. And I know there's also travel vouchers available for people who are traveling a good distance to come to Kelvin to help cover some of those costs. And I know we've also been pushing the Kelvin Promise lately about some of the financial aid that's available and how affordable Kelvin can actually be. But this seems to be working for some people. I was reading one of the comments that a woman said here she had a visit this past weekend from New York, and now Kelvin is her son's first choice for next year.
All right. Way to go. That's a testimonial. So
yeah. So that's great. And so we'll put some of those links down below so that people can check that out. I wondered too, I know you had put out a video a while back for orientation, talking to students about how to handle political topics in divisive times. And I wondered if you could talk a little bit about that and how political discourse is happening on campus these days.
Yeah, maybe, one of the things that we have been thinking about is we're aware there's an election coming. We're aware that actually we're living in a season of a lot of polarization. It's also a cultural context that's quite interesting, and maybe a little discouraging, is that we've tended to subdivide into communities where we only talk to people who agree with us, or we're only listening to news sources that reinforce the perspective that we have. And in some ways, we've also sort of legitimated the idea that if we hear a different point of view, that it's cause for just being angry. that actually we're not, instead of listening and considering and, perhaps being open to being persuaded, but also to understand another perspective, even if you don't agree with it, that's actually an important element to what it means to have a democratic society. Actually, our whole system of our whole republic really depends upon having an educated citizenry that knows how to use persuasion and debate to hear and listen to other perspectives, to find common ground. These are things that our society needs pretty significantly, desperately, and our our country needs it. We have good examples of Calvin alums who are doing this kind of work at all levels of government, and I'm really grateful for you right now, and thankful for you, because you're a model to our students. And then one of the things that we need to remember is that universities, colleges, exist to actually support the enterprise of a democratic society. Actually, when you think of what we do, we bring students from all across the country who at Kelvin who share a commitment to Christ, but they come from families with different perspectives and outlooks, different experiences of life, and different kinds of problems that in the communities that they come from. And then what we do is we say, you're going to live together and you're going to learn how to talk about these things and hopefully work together So one of the things that we felt, though, was that this wasn't going to happen passively. We couldn't just gather everyone together and say, oh, they, figure it out. And so it was very important. A couple of years ago, we decided to take a look at the guidance we have around free expression and the kind of community that we feel aligns well with our mission. And we developed some guidance about the classroom and the community as brave space, a brave space to courageously express opinions, use persuasion, but brave space to actually have courage to listen to another point of view as well. And we had a group of faculty and staff who worked on this, coming from different perspectives, and I think they produced a really great. It's kind of a short. It's too strong to say it's a policy, but it's a set of aspirations that we have for how our community should operate with respect to this. And I think Michael is going to share that link with you now. But also, I had been doing a video for orientation for our students for a long time. Actually, it wasn't a video. I'm sorry. It was a workshop that I used to teach, helping students understand the civil discourse, political discourse that we expect in this community, that it's characterized by truth and grace, by civility and respect. That doesn't mean you should dampen your passion, but you should understand that there's a difference between criticizing an idea and diminishing the image of God in a person when we're upset about something. And so the video was something that I used kind of as a teaching tool. The presentation was something I used as a teaching tool for incoming groups of students in workshop sessions. But this year we had to videotape it. And so that's what we did. But as it was interesting, it was really intended for an audience of first-year students. But as I shared this with a few staff, they said, hey, this is helpful for us. We actually can we use it in our work group? Can we use it in our office? And then our marketing area said, hey, can we just share this with our wider constituents? And so it's something that we've put out there. But what it is an aspiration. And if we're successful, we'll be a community characterized by grace and truth, characterized by civil discourse, characterized by respect, and characterized by the encounter of students from differing points of view, engaging in a respectful way. And I'll have to say, if you want to feel hopeful about the future, just spend time with our students. That's kind of my mantra lately. But it's been really cool. We have a club of Republicans and a club of Democrats, and they've taken that seriously this year, and they've been co-sponsoring some events and working together, and no diminution of their own partisan points of view and perspectives, but the fact that they're cooperating, I think, modeling for other students that there's a way that we can do this at Kelvin University that hopefully can be salt and light to a wider world that really needs it at this time.
Yeah, that's great. We put a link to that video in the comments below, so make sure you check that. The comments are being added by Michael Wildschut, who works in the alumni office with me. So you can look for the comments that he's putting down below to see where those links are. And also the parent I told you about who visited from New York wanted to give some credit to Coach Hoger for helping to create a great lacrosse team. So kudos to him. And the student body president said that that there are folks on the office on campus is helping educate students on how to vote, and they've got QR codes around campus to help with that. And then another alum here mentioned that they had an interesting conversation with a high school parent and student over the weekend about Kelvin. They had wondered where Kelvin University was based on the sticker that they had on the back of their van. So sometimes not just words will get people interested. They had heard of Kelvin College, but didn't realize that it had become a university. So just maybe more people should get a Kelvin sticker on the back of their car.
Rick, you have Kelvin stickers that you give away, right?
I certainly do, yeah.
So just contact Rick and get you set up. If you need a sticker, if you're listening to this right now.
Get you a sticker.
Yeah.
I wanted to talk a little bit about Kelvin's recent strategic plan, part of it was to have more online opportunities, and this pandemic sort of forced our hand in some ways to make things go remote a lot faster than we were planning on. But it's also not what we were. I know that how we did remote classes in the spring is not what we're going to be doing in the future. And so I wondered if you could talk a little bit about what online learning and distance learning might look like for alums around the world.
Yeah, no, that's good. Thanks. And I think what I want to do, and this is a key point, because sometimes people don't hear this point and then they kind of imagine other things. We are still very, very committed to our traditional residential undergraduate population and offering a rich program of study for that group of students. But what we were recognizing as part of our strategy was that there were alums and other friends of the university, people that knew our mission, who were in places far away from Grand Rapids, who were saying, I want to get my master's degree in education. I want to get a master's of accountancy. And I live here in Los Angeles. I live here in Phoenix. What Kelvin's mission is really what I resonate with. What are you going to do for us? And this also is a population of people that are usually working full time and have family and other kinds of commitments. And so the idea of coming in person, to a certain location is just not practical. And we have learned and seen with our centers and institutes, the Kelvin Center for Faith and Writing, the Institute for Christian Worship here at Kelvin. These have been places that have really begun to educate mass audiences about worship or about writing. And they actually have a very vibrant set of digital strategies to reach people around the world. And we felt like, there's a lot to learn from here. So we really embarked a year ago on a strategy to develop a whole series of programs online at the graduate level, and not only master's degrees, but certificates of collections of courses that nest into master's degrees for people to build the skills in their current jobs, current roles. Let's say you're somebody in city government and you are an administrator, but you realize that you need some accounting skills. Well, what about a 4-course certificate in managerial accounting that can really help you get to that next level? But maybe once you finish that, you go, oh, I think I'll build that into an MBA or something like that. So this is the vision for us, is that we would offer a whole set of programs in the digital space for remote learners, where people who are working full time are really looking to ramp up their skills or get a degree for that next level, and offer high quality instruction and do it in a way that is fully aligned with our Christian mission. So we embarked on that. We actually are calling this division within the university the Kelvin Global Campus. Kevin Dendulk, who is a professor in the political science department and director of the Henry Institute, has been hired. Actually, in January, was hired into the role of the associate provost, leading this set of initiatives. And our goal was to move fast to really launch about 8 new programs by the fall of 2022. So that's kind of our aspiration that we set in the winter, and then COVID came. And we had all this capability that we were beginning to develop, but suddenly we really needed it to get through the spring term. And so there was a lot that Kevin and his team helped faculty to sort of manage through the semester. But then the other thing we determined was we should, and the Institute for Christian Worship helped us with this, developed a whole set of summer programs. We're about 80 summer courses, not programs, summer courses for traditional undergrads who are at home and wanted to keep working on their degree, but also a whole set of courses that looked at the COVID crisis through the lens of the Christian faith. And so these courses did phenomenally well this summer in terms of it kind of blew us away how high the enrollments were and how strong they were. And it also taught us a lot about, where we were doing really well and what else we needed to do with our systems and so on, because there was a lot of uptake of it. And so that gave us a lot of encouragement that we're on the right path with respect to that. And so you can look for more in that space from us in the future and begin to tell that story too, to friends, relatives, or maybe even yourself if you're considering an advanced degree. So you can look forward to more from us on that.
Yeah, that's great. And I think I'm also going to make a plug right now here for the call program too, because they have to put all the classes that they're offering are all online this year too. So there's opportunities for alumni around the world to be able to participate in the call classes because we have to be doing them remotely right now as well. So we'll put a link to that in the comments below. And Michael also, also let me know that we did put the alumni@calvin.edu email address in the comments. If people want to get a sticker, we'd be happy to send you one. And we also did put a link to the Spark article on the global campus so people can read a little bit more about that. I got a question from a parent who was asking about student retention and heard that the retention was actually up this past year and wondered what the reasons are for that.
Whenever I get a question like that, I always want to, humbly say, because Calvin's awesome. But I know you're probably asking a more analytical question. I think what I've heard feedback on was that communicating early in the spring our intent to open face-to-face in such an uncertain, unclear time that the message of clarity, we didn't have everything solved yet. We didn't have everything figured out. But we actually held informational town halls for returning students and new students all through the summer, and actually really started in May, if I recall correctly, and tried to communicate with clarity on things like what's the academic calendar going to look like, what is the experience on campus going to be like, what is the experience in the residence hall going to be like, do we have to get our own food, or are you providing that for us? And we had a lot of those kinds of questions that we had to answer so we knew what to do, but also to just providing that communication, the connection, the clarity. I think the summer courses helped too, students to stay engaged. But I also think that the students were so ready to come back. They just there's something, I think for years especially in relatively wealthy country in the world, there are probably a lot of things that we began to take for granted. That in the mind of, and I know not everyone goes to college, but in the minds of a lot of college-ready high school seniors, everyone goes to college. In the minds of 20-year-olds out of college, it's like, well, this is always going to be here for me. And then suddenly it wasn't. So, and it's like, I'll never forget that Wednesday that we were meeting as a team, and all the other big universities were shutting down, and so they were suddenly setting a standard of care for what was reasonable and appropriate, and we didn't know very much, and we didn't have much to defend us or our students from the kind of outbreak that we saw. So it was a very sudden loss for our students, very sudden, and a very sudden shift for our faculty, but especially our students. And they love their families, they tell you that. But when you're 20 years old and you're in your basement and you're cut off from all your friends, and that course with the lab that you've been so looking forward to is not, you can't learn that way anymore. Suddenly, it deepens the sense of appreciation and that yearning, and so I continue to have these conversations where students say, thank you so much that we can be here. So I think if maybe helping us all look back and remember there was a significant loss there, and a significant loss, and the threat of a significant loss that was going to last for an unforeseeable amount of time. And so I think we're all here kind of shaking our heads and saying God is good. And we are really thankful to be in an opportunity where we can do this, where it actually seems to be working. And we're really committed to continuing to do all that we can to make sure it is working. We had a phenomenal retention result from our returning sophomore class. One of the best that we've had ever, and that's very encouraging. That is not what my worst fears were, that maybe we get half of the students back. I just didn't know, so I'm thankful too.
Yeah, that's great, and it sort of leads into my next question. What positives have you sort of seen from the pandemic, or things that you've learned that you think you would continue to carry on after there may be a vaccine, either for you personally or for Kelvin?
Yeah, it's interesting, and now that you say that, there are things that I come across and I think, oh yeah, that's a good thing that we do, that I'm gonna want to keep doing. Well, one of the things I started doing, I try to be approachable. I try to be very visible on campus, so that students see me around at events and at just going to the dining hall and whatever, so that they know they can talk to me at any time. But when they were all online, that was suddenly gone. So I took to holding virtual office hours, and especially in the spring, the turnout of students to that. It wasn't like it was tons of people, but we would just set it up, 5 or 6 people, come, bring a topic, bring something you want to tell me about, ask a question, bring some joy you want to share, tell me how I can pray for you. It was just really wide open. And there were a number of students that came into those experiences where we just could talk and build a relationship in a new way. And so I'm gonna keep office hours, in the future. I've had a few this fall. I'm assuming everybody's doing just great, because I've had a few this fall where it's just one person shows up. I think they feel sort of sorry for me and they don't know if they can ever leave. But it's, I take that as a good sign, and I've had, and they've been some really positive conversations. So I think I'll keep doing that. My background is I'm an educator. I was a teacher first, a professor first, and I got into this work in the first place because of students. And so I think the things that I've learned about how you keep up and stay connected, and even socially engaged right now, in this environment, I think that will just stay with me. I'm gonna be much more appreciative of embodied human relationships and connections than I was. I know I just took it for granted, like everybody. So
yeah, for sure. I've got just a couple tough questions for you yet, and then we'll do a couple fun ones. So questions from alum wondering how alumni can best support Kelvin right now. And also, what are your top concerns as you remember Kelvin in our prayers?
Yeah, well, thank you. Prayer, it is so reassuring to me sometimes when, this morning there was something that I was contending with that was sort of stressful. And I took a little walk just for a few minutes outside, and I remembered, people are praying for this place. They're praying for our leaders at Kelvin. So it's very reassuring to know that you're praying out there. I have this image in my mind that's sort of like, if you've ever been to the ocean where the waves kind of steadily crash and they have a rhythm to them. That's kind of how I imagine your prayers and how I visualize them. And so if you can keep the waves of prayer, moving in our direction, we're very, very grateful for that. I think we continue to pray for the health and safety of everyone in this community. And so you can continue to pray for that and pray that we continue to deliver a good education for students. Mental health is a concern, I think, nationwide, just in this time, the isolation and the disruption and the loss that people are experiencing. That's true of also our faculty, staff, and students who've experienced those things. And so pray there that the people who are struggling or suffering reach out to get the help they need, and pray for those that are working in healthcare and mental health and other kinds of roles that are so important. So those would be some things. I think praying for us financially, the things that we're doing are really, really important to help us deliver the mission. But there's a cost to them. There's a cost to doing things like testing, and there's a cost to a lot of the health and safety precautions that we're taking. Your financial support makes a big difference. Our alumni network was phenomenal in the additional resources that they gave in the annual fund and in other ways in the spring for our fiscal year. It really helped us to close a budget gap. We were projecting a budget gap of about $5 million, a shortfall, when we sent students home and we had to refund room and board for the semester, as well as losses of other revenues that we count on, like renting out the Prince Conference Center, holding events here on campus, weddings, and other things that we have. And most of that's gone. And so the fact that our donors and friends really stepped in, and it was some really generous gifts that were of good size, but lots of $25 gifts and lots of $50 gifts and lots of $100 gifts. Those made big differences for us. And I was really, I'm pleased to report to you that this hit us with only 3 months to go in the fiscal year. So it's also a tough time to reduce expenses and try to make it. So that and expense reduction and your generous giving really helped us to close the deficit to about $500,000, which, down from $5 million, was a real answer to prayer. And we have been able to sort of close that gap, but it's for the last fiscal year with other resources. But we have a lot of uncertainty that's ahead of us. If you can remember Kelvin in your giving, we're really thankful for it. But we also know it's a hard time for people in their families, that there are needs. There are people that have lost jobs out there. And so, we trust you to remember us when you can, and be helping the people in your community too as they need it, because that's the Kelvin way. That's been so impressive to me. So,
yeah. And I think the other thing we can suggest is tell a prospective student about Kelvin.
Yes.
Too. It's an easy way for an alum to help out the university as well. So, well, those are most of my tough questions, but I was getting questions from you on Instagram and on Facebook this week. People want to know a little bit more about you personally. So we're going to go into a couple of those. Wondering, what is your favorite food?
Yeah, it has to be berry pie.
Really?
Yeah. I mean, yeah, like strawberry pie in June, and then kind of raspberry, marionberry, huckleberry from the Northwest. Any of those kind of things. So, really, when you think of me, I have the appetite of a bear, in the sense that my favorite foods are berries and salmon. So.
Oh.
So I'm very simple from that point of view. It seems like in June I build up a lot of caloric intake, and then need to cut way back all through the winter. So yeah, those would be a few of my favorite foods.
All right, fair enough. What about what's your favorite movie, or what are you getting any time to watch anything on Netflix right now?
I have Andrew and I will sit down and we'll try to watch a movie, and we're like, I don't know, there's thousands of things you could watch, and it's just hard. I probably should talk to people more about what do they recommend. I have a brother-in-law who's really good about that. He's like, what book have you read in the last 6 months that's good? what shows have you watched that you think are worth watching, and so on. We have watched the Masterpiece Theater Endeavor mysteries that are on. I can't remember if that's on BritBox or Prime or
one of those streams.
One of those streaming services. That I really love that series. That's a fun one to watch, and that's probably the one that comes to mind most recently. I've been to Oxford a few times. It's such a beautiful setting, and so it's even fun to watch and just look for places I recognize and that kind of thing. So yeah.
Well, and I remember this past summer when we did one of these calls, we asked you what you were reading, and I think back then it was a political biography, if I remember. I don't remember whose it was, but what are you reading now? And
yeah, I just finished. See, I can't remember what we were talking about then. I know I was talking about in March a book about the flu pandemic, which I don't want to talk about that anymore. So, but I read a book that I thought. Actually, I listened to it as an audiobook when I run, because when I'm running and listening to a book, I'm thinking less about how old my body is. But The Splendid and the Vile, and it's a biography of Winston Churchill. I hope that's not what I mentioned before, because you're going to think that I'm a slow reader, but or a slow runner. But I do recommend that. That was a very good book. I actually really have found it very helpful as a leader to read books about other leaders in very difficult times historically. And this is about Winston Churchill in year one of his prime ministership. It just covers a 1 year of his time as prime minister, but it's during the London Blitz, and he was an incredibly quirky guy. So there's a lot of funny stories about that, but also just tremendous, just to be aware of the tremendous stress and the toll that it took on him, but also that he found ways to cope with it and to persevere. That has helped me a lot. Just helping me to realize that seems like a way more stressful situation than what I'm contending with. And he didn't live long after that, but he survived through the war and persevered. And so there are ways to do that, and ways to be inspired as a leader to lead effectively. So,
yeah, this isn't quite at the same level, but this summer I had a bat in my house, and I was watching the TV show Alone on the History Channel, and they drop these contestants off in the wilderness, and they've got to, set up a shelter for themselves, and they've got to fend off cougars and bears. And I'm sitting in my house and I'm worried about a bat, and I'm watching these other people, and I'm like, oh, my life's not that bad.
Yeah, it really helps.
It puts things in perspective. So
that's right. Do you know that we've had in our house here on campus, we've had 2 bats this is my 9th year as Kelvin's president, but we had one the first year I was here, and that was a funny story that I could tell someday. And then my wife and I were away, and our daughter called. She's staying with us right now, and there was a bat that had gotten in, and she wasn't quite sure she knew what to do. So she called a Calvin alum. This is a great place to end. Called a Calvin alum. Calvin alum came over, and with I think a shoebox and a tennis racket, and which I never would have thought of, but managed to get the bat out and save the day. So anyway, if you have any bat difficulties, you need to really draw on the resources of our recent grads, Rick.
That's great information. I appreciate that. I've had somebody come out and take care of my bat problem, so I think that's passed right now. So
yeah, but you probably had to pay them.
I did.
Yeah, we didn't have to. So we probably should, but we didn't have to. So
okay, well, we have hit 9 o'clock, so I am going to let you go. But Thank you so much for spending some time with us today. I really appreciate it. And please keep up the good work, and know that alumni around the world will be praying for you.
Thanks so much. And thanks to all of you who took an hour out of your evening to visit with us. And I wish you health and safety and strength and encouragement for the good work that you're doing to live out Calvin's mission in your life right now. So thank you very much.
All right. Thank you. Good night, everybody.
Good night.